As far as my health, I have just recently been diagnosed with POTS, dysautonomia. Having a diagnosis is a new thing for me. I'm used to living in what I call no diagnosis land. I lived in no diagnosis land for many years. I can look back to going back as far as even my childhood, as far as passing out goes. Many famous stories through my teenage years of Jan passing out and causing funny situations. I won't go into the funny stories right now, but maybe one day. I was kind of known for that when I was a teenager. And so as time went on, as I have 3 absolutely amazing boys, and my pregnancies with them were extremely difficult. They were all premature. They're all my miracle babies. They're all growing up now, so I can say it all turned out, but it was a rough go, and it was a tough time, and it was really touch and go. And I'm so grateful to be able to sit here all these years later and tell you that my boys are perfectly fine, because we weren't sure. I look back and I wonder how much of all this had to do with the problems I had, really bad problems with going into premature labor. So I'm still trying to figure everything out, so just looking back. But as I said, I can see that, going back for some time now, I don't really remember a time that I wasn't ill, to be honest. I don't know if I know what that feels like. But I'll say that, I got through most of my life. I was able to get through it. Really rough patch about 10 years ago. About 14 years ago, I'm guessing, I started to try to figure out what was wrong, to seriously figure out what was wrong, and that didn't go so well. The doctors were not able to figure it out, and as many of your stories go, it was a very frustrating time trying to find a diagnosis, and I wasn't really given any answers, and I was just told they really didn't know what was physically wrong with me. And of course, as many of you are told, I've seen through the stories, I also was told that this was probably something that was psychosomatic. So at that time, I decided to stop trying to find out what was wrong with me. And I decided I'm going to raise my children and I'm going to live the best life I can. But I also swore I was never going back to another doctor. And I hung on to that for a lot of years. It probably wasn't the best decision to do that, but out of my frustration levels, that's what I was brought to. About, I would say, 4 years ago, I started having severe gastrointestinal problems. And they became so severe that I couldn't eat anymore, and I lost a significant amount of weight. So probably went down to like under 104 pounds. So it just got to a point that I had to start seeking help medically again. So, as I like to say, I got back into the ring again. I always say that to me it feels like I've been fighting with a blindfold on my entire life, because I just never knew what I was fighting. I felt that there was something horrible in my body that I was constantly fighting, but I just had no idea what it was. So 4 years ago, I got back into the ring with the doctors trying to figure it out. And again, with not much success. And I can say that I was just about ready to give up again. And I can remember one specific day that for me, showering was, I called the shower my torture chamber, because showering was always so difficult and exhausting. And I remember one day I went into the shower and it was just so utterly frustrating. And I remember I just leaned against the wall and I started to cry. And I started to talk to my God. And I started to beg him. I said, God, I need change. I need change. I have to know what it is. I had done this for so many years, as long as I could remember. And this is just this past year that this incident I'm talking about happened. So I literally cried out to my God, and I said, Lord, please, I need change. And not too long after that, they did start to think that I might have a condition called, and I won't get into it, but it's called pheochromocytoma, because I have a growth on my adrenal gland. But then what happened was the hormone levels didn't come back as they thought, and that was all totally dropped. Now, I didn't want to have pheochromocytoma because it scared me. But the fact that the medical community had just dropped everything again, and I was just right back to where I was. We just don't know. And that was pretty devastating for me, because I thought that we were actually maybe on a track where I can find something so I could figure out how to get better. And then I was right back to, you're never going to get better. And, you know, it really felt like I really had accepted a long time ago that I really thought that I would just live with this until the day that I died, not knowing what it was. But I remember the day that it hit me really hard. And the reason I want to share this story with you is because it's just been such a big part of my life lately, in this last year, in getting me to my diagnosis. That day I felt in this very quiet way that God seems to show me things. And I always know that it's Him, because it's always, for me, the same identical way that He does it. And it just came to me to get my Bible. So I did that. And I felt to just open my Bible, which is what I did. And that day I opened my Bible to Psalms 46:10. Opened it right up to, and that was the first thing I looked at when I looked. And I'll read that to you. Psalms 46:10 says, He says, be still and know that I am God. Well, that was pretty powerful for me that day. Not as powerful as it was going to become, I must say, though. I didn't understand fully. I do now. But still a very powerful verse for me. Not a very long verse, but be still and know that I am God. And I'm not really knowing to be still. If anybody knows me, it's kind of comical in that way, because that's not usually me. But I really felt that day that God was saying to me, you need to be still now, Jan. And you need to know and believe and trust that I am God. So I hung on to that verse. Boy, did I cling on to that verse. I had some ER visits after that, and I hadn't even totally memorized the verse yet. And when I would get, my mom was with me, and I was in the hospital, and I was so ill, and I kept saying to my mom, Mom, what's my verse? Mom, what's my verse? And my wonderful mom would sit there and say, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. She would just say it to me over and over. Thank you, Mom. I have to add that. And she was wonderful for reminding me on what He had given me. So I did. And I can see now that He was saying to me, Jan, you need to be still a little, you got to wait a little longer. It's coming, but it's not yet. Because not too long after that is when everything started to come around within, I don't know how many months, but it did start to come around that we realized that there was something more to do with the passing out. They decided to check with the heart. I went and purchased one of these lovely heart rate watches. That started to show me so very much about my life. I realized why my showers were quite so difficult. I was going well over to 200, my heart rate, every time I showered. No problem. Anytime I would stand, I realized I was up into the 150s just immediately upon standing, which explained so many things. It explained why you had such a hard time breathing, why you felt so ill, why I would pass out. That started to really tell a lot. Then there was a heart, the doctor did a Holter monitor on me. So that showed there that there was tachycardia ending in bradycardia. It showed that there was something there, and surprisingly enough, the Holter monitor had been done before. It took a little bit of time after that. Once I got a copy of the report, I saw on the bottom that it was brought up that it should be investigated on whether or not I had POTS. So I looked into what this POTS was, and I was extremely surprised to realize that I really fit the bill on what POTS was. I have since been diagnosed with a tilt table test, so we know now. But at that time I wasn't sure, and I started to go on YouTube, and I started to look around, and that's when I met all of you, and what a wonderful time that has been. That has been exhilarating. It's just been life-changing. Rejuvenating, I guess, would be a really good word. To be able to meet people that were so much like me, and I would have never even guessed there was anybody else that my illness seemed to be at the time so unique. Nobody had ever seemed to, you get the blank stare look, like they had never ever seen anybody else like you. So to hear other people talk and to see the similarities was just oddly very comforting. So I really need to thank all of you for posting your vids, for showing me with a heart rate watch what it does so that I could compare mine to yours. Even in talking about it and the symptoms, and it was life-changing. It was life-changing, and it still has been. It's still been so helpful because I'm still in the battle of, I've been diagnosed, but not a whole lot's being done yet. To the extent that I know through all of you that can be done. So it's still really helping me in my future appointments on how to handle things. Well, I can see I'm gone on way too long. I was really nervous that I would do this. I have more that I would like to share with you, but I will definitely save this for another time. I just wanted to really press tonight that I've learned through my illness that God's timing is perfect, my own is not. And that sometimes we just need to be still, and we just need to know that He is God, and let Him take care of the rest. And I can honestly say tonight that I have watched Him do that in my life. And I just highly recommend that to anybody that's struggling right now, that it's just too much to bear, because it was becoming too much for me to bear. But when I found that verse, then I was able to just be still in Him and just know that He is God, and let Him take it from there. And trust me, He will do that. Okay, well guys, I'm sorry this is long. I'll try not to make my other ones long. I'm notoriously known to really ramble on. So I'm going to say goodnight for now. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this, because I know that it's very long. And thank you. Good night.